Assalamu alaikum and welcome all to another episode of the Optimized Muslim podcast. Alhamdulillah, today is a bit of a different one, and inshallah, it's going to be a bit more engaging and a bit more beneficial, inshallah, as well. This will be, inshallah, the first of many interview podcasts, and we're going to be looking to interview people that have done something or have a particular way of thinking that we can all benefit from, or we can be inspired from, or we can use and adopt in our own lives to obviously benefit ourselves and the wider community. And then that's where it links into the tagline of optimizing the Muslim's mindset for meaningful success in this life and in the hereafter. So this episode, and I'll be introducing the guest very shortly, inshallah. This episode is about learning Arabic. And like the other topics that we discuss on this podcast and project, it's not going to be about the importance of learning Arabic. So that's a prerequisite that, inshallah, you all have to some degree. The importance of learning Arabic for our deen, the importance of why it's so important in our deen. We're not going to be necessarily talking about that. This is more the practical side. As we always discuss, this is about narrowing the gap between knowing and doing. So it's more about implementation, tools, tips, tactics, how you can actually put it into practice. So inshallah, the intention is once you listen to our conversation, some of you might be inspired to take that first step. And obviously, we all know the hadith that if one person is guided to a good action by someone else, then the person guiding, if they do it with the right intention, they'll get that reward as well. So with that being said, we'll talk about things in the macro, so meta learning, how you can apply that to everything. I've already done a podcast on starting jiu-jitsu or learning Arabic. That's kind of linked into this as well. So now, first of all, the guest is Brother Usman Khalid, and Brother Usman Khalid is a university student that I met at an Islamic course that we both study at. And alhamdulillah, I think the benefit is that a side benefit or side note is that if you want to meet a certain type of people, you have to put yourself in that environment where those kinds of people will frequent, right? Sometimes we all sit in our daily lives and we complain about how these days there's not religious or practicing people, but then we don't make the effort to put ourselves in those gatherings. But that's a side point. Back to the point. Brother Usman, I heard him speaking to the sheikh who teaches the class in Arabic, and at that moment a kind of light bulb went off, because I'd been planning on doing this kind of interview show for a while, and then once I saw he's got a bit of swagger, mashallah. I saw we've got similar interests, Arabic, young, learning the deen, striving to better himself, and I thought he's a perfect first guest for this show, inshallah. So Brother Usman, assalamu alaikum, and thank you for taking your time to join us as well.
Wa alaikum salam. The pleasure's all mine, alhamdulillah.
And I say join us, but it's just me anyway. And obviously, this isn't like the Joe Rogan podcast, but I appreciate you taking your time. There's no kind of benefit for you taking the time to join us apart from, inshallah, the reward of perhaps inspiring someone to start the journey as well. So, Akhi, starting from the beginning, I'm going to say, obviously you haven't really been prepared for this, so it's just going to be like a free-flowing conversation, yeah?
Yeah, that's fine.
When was the first kind of bit of motivation or impetus that you got for learning that? And just to give context, you're 21, isn't it?
Yes.
Okay, so quite young. When was the first kind of that seed of the desire of wanting to learn Arabic for you?
Yeah, good question, actually. I started when I was about 16, 17. Started a class where they used to teach grammar, but I didn't know much about Arabic then. It was just a class that I just joined because my parents made me join. But since then, I was learning grammar and I kind of understood it. And then I left the class. And like a year or two later, I started studying Arabic properly when I was 19. And then since then, I just had the motivation that just like, I drive in me that I just wanted to learn Arabic.
Okay, So digging a bit deeper into that, yeah, akhi. So
Yes.
when you're 19, yeah, you're at university,
Yeah.
and it's all madness in the dunya, as they like to say. So what was it then that kind of made you take that first step? I know it's a bit like, or if you can't remember, just say, or so you basically you had the desire since you were 16 somewhat because you were in that realm, you were in kind of studying Arabic, at least
Yeah.
to some extent, yeah?
Yeah. It was actually my friend. Actually, he started Arabic, and then he asked me, "Oh, uh, you should join the class." And
Mm,
I was thinking, I'm not sure. And
mm,
then surprisingly, we were in a cafe,
mm,
and we met the teacher of the class. And I was just talking to him, and he
mm,
goes, "I go, can I join the Arabic class?" And he goes, "Yeah, just go for it." And
mm,
it was because of my friend. I think it was the environment that I had with me that
mm,
encouraged me to study Arabic. Now,
mm.
mashallah, this brother has gone to Reem in Yemen and he's studying there now, mashallah. But it
Mm,
was him
okay.
who encouraged me to go like pursue it properly, like wholeheartedly, not just half-heartedly.
Mm,
So, and it was because of him, I think. So it was the environment around me that encouraged me to study Arabic properly.
mm. No, mashallah. Yeah, that's the thing because that's why it's important to have good company in it, akhi. And
You know,
because I feel like it's that first, everyone has the desire. You know, if you speak to the average Muslim, the average
yes,
young Muslim, they're going to say, oh, I want to learn Arabic. And, but that's all it is. It just ends there. And next time the conversation starts about Arabic, someone will say it again, oh, I've always wanted to learn Arabic. Do you
yes,
get me?
that's
It
true.
never
Yeah,
goes. And I think everyone goes through that phase. It's not anything to kind of look down upon or anything, but
yeah,
that's why we're making this episode, inshallah, because I was like that up until um, all throughout uni. I remember I used to say like, "Oh, I want to learn Arabic," and then even after uni, I only started maybe when I was about 24, so a bit later than you. And that goes to show as well. There's no kind of time scale. Some people think if they haven't learned Arabic when they're young, then there's no hope. Similar way, some people view learning the Quran. You know, if they haven't learned it when they're young, they have this thing that oh, you can only learn when you're young, right? It's that limiting mindset.
mm,
So that's another benefit of being with good company. Someone that's just going to push you. Someone that's just going to say, you know what, you need to um, take the first step. And just
yeah,
being around someone that does it inspires you. You know how you're the average of the five people you most associate with, and obviously there's the hadith as well that show me your friends and I'll show you who you are, or words to that effect.
yeah,
And because even myself, when I first started interacting with you, he was the first person in the UK that I spoke to. Obviously, my Arabic's speaking is very poor compared to yours, but just even attempting that conversation, it took my motivation to another level, because before you just kind of self-studying, not putting that much in. But then when you see someone else who's done it, it kind of pushes you. You know what I
mm,
mean? It takes you out of
yes,
the theoretical. So okay, so and is this where you started with the institute
yes. I
in?
started in Oldham Ghazali Trust. I started
Right, okay.
studying Arabic properly with them, alhamdulillah.
And what was the kind of schedule, or how many times a week was it? And
I think the schedule that they put out is one of the best.
mm,
So we study in class twice a week
mm,
for about 3 hours a week. So
mm,
each 1.5 hour classes.
yeah,
Then outside of that, we had two homeworks, which were about an hour each. And
mm,
also group sessions. So whatever we learnt in the class, we practice it as a group. So in that you're in that environment of Arabic speaking, so where you're supposed to speak Arabic.
yeah,
And also there was like an app where all the vocab was, so you
shared.
just used to revise
Mm,
the words. So there was just consistent of Arabic. So it's just there's like a class outside of class. So
yeah.
within that you're just supposed to speak Arabic, and where in that environment you can also speed up and progress quickly.
Mm. Yeah, I think that's probably, if I compare my experience learning to yours, that strikes me as the most beneficial. You know, the group sessions where you're practicing
Yeah,
conversation. because if you just self-study, even if you have a teacher from Egypt using Skype or whatever else, which we'll come to in terms of the methods that one can use to learn Arabic, right?
Yes.
The thing with joining an institute, that's probably a shortcut. So if we go into like the methods of learning, if you want to make life easy for yourself, the best way to do it, I think, is to join a group or an institute like you did, because that factors in certain things like accountability, that group vibe, and you just get into the routine of doing it and it becomes kind of part of your identity, isn't it?
Yeah.
Whereas if
And it's,
you're, yeah, go on.
and it's always also drilled into you. So let's
Mm,
say you also want to study online with the teacher by yourself.
yeah,
That mentality is drilled into you.
yeah,
So you're essentially, let's say you want to do work outside of the online class.
yeah,
You're drilling yourself where you're just talking to yourself or wherever, like it's a group session, if that makes sense.
yeah, yeah,
So
exactly.
that practice is drilled into you, is hardwired, where you just whenever you're revising for Arabic, you're naturally thinking, okay, I have to revise like this.
Mm, yeah, that's the key. And okay, so then with this class, um, how long is the course, or how long were you studying before you felt as if you could kind of hold a conversation?
I say, surprisingly, alhamdulillah, within like 3-4 months, I was holding a conversation
Mm,
where I could speak, like, I wouldn't say fluently, but I could hold
mm,
a conversation and speak with an Arab person or another person who can speak Arabic within
mm.
3-4 months, because you have a basic foundation of vocab and also the practicing where it just comes naturally. So I could have a conversation naturally.
MashaAllah. Yeah, that's the key. I think it comes down to immersion, isn't it? Because you know
Yes.
how some people say you can't learn it until you go to that country, right?
Yeah.
Um, it's somewhat similar to that, because the more you expose yourself to that language, the more comfortable you get into it. Even if you
Yeah.
learn vocab, because again, I would say I know a bit of vocab, but then it's in terms of putting it together, that's where you
Mm.
have to either just practice more speaking, isn't it, Akhi?
Yeah. Yeah. That's true.
Okay, and just
Uh,
for that, I'm going to play a bit of devil's advocate, yeah, because
I
I
go
like
for
to
it.
say, I like to say on this podcast and just naturally how I am as well. We like to suffocate excuses, as they say, yeah.
Yeah.
So, so now, what if someone's saying this guy's a bit of a prodigy, or he just, if he learned it in 3 to 4 months, the guy must have just been a whiz kid. Would you say you had kind of a bit of a unique Arabic learning gift, or would you say it was kind of similar to the other people that were learning there? Or would you say you were more interested or put more effort in? How would you describe that?
I say no. I disagree with that. I'd say everyone within the class,
Mm,
everyone there could speak within 3 weeks. It wasn't about how intelligent you are. There's a
mm,
difference between being smart and working hard. With
mm,
this group session, is you're forced to work hard. So there, you're just working hard and consistently revising, going over it, practicing, and then within the 3 months, you can see it's working off, and you're actually like speaking and holding a conversation. So
mm.
it's not about how like you're a whiz code, etc. It's all about
Yeah,
the work you put in. I say people
yeah,
people like personally, I see that people like to, if they can't do it, they'll like to put a label on that person to be like, okay, this guy's a whiz kid or this guy's smart, but
exactly.
they just can't put the hard work in. Personally, that's why I say it's just
Bit,
if they put the hard work in, they'll see, okay, this is like normal, this is easy. They're not a whiz kid, etc.
mashallah, bit ruthless in it there, Akhi.
But
Yeah,
it's the
I
truth.
agree with
It's the
you,
truth.
Akhi. I agree with you. I always say there's always an excuse,
Yeah,
because whatever phase of life you're at, there's always an excuse. If you're at university, some people will see that as a positive. Some people will see, okay, we're at university, there's not that many lectures, we have so much free time, we can do this, yeah? Other
yeah,
people will see it the opposite. They'll be like, oh, we
yeah,
need to focus on whatever the degree is. Then once you finish uni, it'll be, oh, you need to focus on work. Then after that, guess what? You've got married, or you might have
yeah,
got married before. So you can use whatever excuse that you want. And that overall, in terms of psychology, it comes back down to that. growth versus fixed mindset. You know, if you've got a growth mindset, you're always looking to improve. You don't mind kind of failing. You don't mind fighting resistance. Like even this podcast and this interview or this kind of discussion, there's a lot of resistance. Sometimes you don't feel like doing it. It's all new. You don't know how it's going to turn out. You kind of have to force yourself by thinking of what the potential benefit is. And it's the same with that. I've spoken to countless people. If they're over a certain age, they'll use family life as an excuse. I know there are legitimate excuses as well, but you know how they say, where there's a will, there's a way, right?
Yeah, there's an Arabic saying that says, "رحلة العلم ليست مسابقة." So the journey of knowledge is not a race. So
Mm,
if you think, "Oh, I'm going too slow, I'm going too fast, or I don't have the time," just start slowly. It's okay.
mashallah.
Just start slowly. Okay, just do maybe one lesson a week. Find a teacher that does one. That means you only have to revise once a week, etc. So once you realize when you start slowly, then you can feel like, okay, I can build this up, and it just
Mm,
becomes easier.
yeah, exactly, akhi. Mashallah. So that's the thing. I would say, and that's a key point because the natural instinct for people is to compare ourselves, isn't it? Whatever
Yeah.
field we're in, whatever area we're in, but run your own race. That's another key kind of mindset topic that we like, that I would want people to kind of instill,
Yeah.
right? And obviously, we all have to remind ourselves, isn't it, Akhi? Because
Yes.
sometimes if you're on Instagram or on these social media networks or whatever, you can compare yourself, even if it's within um, certain Islamic kind of fields or whatever else, right? Um, you have to just focus on yourself, focus on the different, where it is as a priority for you, and just make consistent progress, isn't it, Akhi?
Yeah. No, that's true. I remember I was in jiu-jitsu recently, and I was looking at this other guy,
Yeah,
and he goes, I go, oh man, oh, you're so amazing at jiu-jitsu and all that
yeah,
stuff. He goes, don't compare, don't compare yourself to me. Compare
yeah,
yourself to what you were a couple of days ago, or a couple of months ago. That's
yeah,
where you see progression.
yeah,
If you keep
exactly.
comparing yourself to me, you'll just feel like you'll feel let down, and you'll just give up. Compare
Mm.
yourself with yourself, and you'll see the progression, and you'll move quickly as well.
Yeah, exactly. And that's the thing, you know, in being in certain environments, like even jujitsu, right?
Yes.
Obviously, it's Muslims, non-Muslims, whatever, but that environment is a kind of a hub for people with a growth mindset. That's why there's so much of this personal development stuff, like, you know, Joe Rogan and all these, Jocko Willick and all that. They're always talking about jiu-jitsu, is
Yes.
because if you think about it, you can't go into that with a big ego. You can't go
Yes.
into that because, and you know, if someone's there with a blue belt or black belt, you know they're generally very kind of humble, helpful, nice people. Obviously, there's the
Yes.
exceptions, and obviously people have bad days and whatnot. But the reason is they've been through that process of getting beat down or getting tapped out. You know what I mean? And
Yes.
they've been through that phase of awe. Like even when I started, and obviously now I've stopped going a little bit because of this whole virus thing. Have you? Or are you still
Uh,
going?
I'm still going, but I think my gym's gonna close down for the week or something
Is it?
due to coronavirus.
Yeah, I was thinking about it because I was thinking that's probably one of the points where you're most exposed, you know, compared to my like day-to-day life. I'm not really,
Yeah,
so I was thinking I might as well just see how it goes, innit?
yeah. But I think most like I've seen like other gyms, like MMA gyms, they've closed down for
Yeah,
like a couple of days because of the corona. See where
yeah,
it's going.
yeah. So getting back to the thing about, um,
Arabic.
yeah, Arabic, and just as a side note, inshallah, we do plan on having a physical kind of sit-down podcast, which is going to be
Inshallah.
better, inshallah, down the line. But so there's this whole institute way of thinking. I mean, institute way of learning. And the good
Yeah.
thing about that is you're making things easier for yourself, isn't it?
Yes. Yeah.
Because you've got certain things that are necessary for learning any topic, things like feedback, things like environment, things like accountability, a group, homework, that kind of thing is all factored in like a package. Do you get me?
Yes.
As in, you
Yes.
join the institute, you get everything else. It's a bit like going masjid when you're a kid to learn the Quran. The teacher's
Yes.
there, the instant feedback's there, the kind of, you say zabar when it's supposed to be zir, feedback or slap is there. So it's that it's that
Yeah.
constant feedback loop is there, and then it becomes part of your daily life. If you do it the
Yeah.
other way, Because look, let's try and cater for different people, yeah?
Okay.
Again, devil's advocate, some people are going to be saying, I can't do that. I finish work at 6 p.m., whatever else. Now, here's the thing. 20 years ago, that might have been an excuse, isn't it? The
Yeah,
thing is
that's true.
now, you've got the internet. Now you can start learning via a tutor in Egypt or Yemen or Morocco at any time that you want. Yeah, for
Yeah.
about £5 an hour, isn't it, Akhi?
Yeah, that's true.
Or even yeah, £5 an hour. So there's no excuse. Or even
Okay.
YouTube. Forget
Yeah.
forget even trying to get in touch with a teacher. You can find these books and you can find the recorded lectures of these lessons, whether it's Al Arabiya Bayna Yadayk or the Medina book series, the two kind of most common ones. So you can factor in, think about it, 30 minutes every day. After a while, you're going to be picking up vocab, and you might not be fluent in terms of speaking, but again, run your own race. And it depends what's going on in your life, isn't it, Afi? So just
Yeah.
to give like an example, I was at the phase where I was already working and everything else. Now you can either, I have this kind of philosophy, yeah? Philosophy sounds like some next level deep thing, but it's like when you're young, you try and navigate through this flux, like everything's up in the air, and it might be, think of it as controlled chaos, yeah? Because one way of doing it is to just focus on one thing and go all out on that. And most people, they do that with their career or something, right? Like all out, work hard, try and progress, and the rest of it. But if you have all these different priorities, and as a Muslim, I think that you should, whether that's Quran, deen, um, learning Arabic, then you can add to that fitness, you can add to that health, you can add to that personal development, family, you might be getting married, whatever. Think of all these as kind of balls that you're juggling, right?
Mm.
It's a phase of maybe 5 years where you look, where it seems like you're not making progress in any of these areas. You get me?
Mm.
Because it's like, oh, my Arabic's not that good. Um, and if I just focused on one thing, but then you have to think long term. After like 4 or 5 years, you look back and think, alhamdulillah, like all the progress that you've made in all these different areas. You just have to be patient, um, and obviously keep motivated, keep praying, and things kind of come into fruition in it.
Yes, that's
Okay,
true.
so the next kind of thing that we wanted to talk about is in terms of, I think one thing a lot of people think of is when they want to learn Arabic, they think they have to pack their bags and go Egypt, isn't it, for 6 months?
Yeah.
Huh? So far we haven't touched on that topic. Obviously, we've been talking about, now there's loads of institutes in the UK, isn't it, Akhi? You can
Yeah,
join
there's
one.
loads.
Yeah,
Yeah, there's loads.
and even
There's
if
loads.
not, you've got the
Internet.
method that I just described about the internet. No one,
Yeah.
this is North Korea, yeah? If anyone can't access YouTube, then message us and we'll, I don't know what we'll do, but at least it'll be a case story, isn't it?
Yeah.
But basically, you've got access to the internet, you've got access to these resources. It's just a matter of starting. And then that's
Mm.
when the other thing, psychology comes in of like, being consistent, 5 or 10 minutes a day just to start off. Because if you think, oh, I'm going to learn Arabic, it sounds like a mighty kind of mountain. But start small, be consistent, and then the progress will motivate you to go to the next step.
That's true. And also, I'd recommend like force yourself to speak to people who you know can speak Arabic.
Yeah,
That's why it's when you're studying online or YouTube, when you're outside and you know someone can speak Arabic,
yeah.
force yourself to speak Arabic with them.
Even if
Just
you make
try,
mistakes.
even when you make mistakes. I've done this. I think I love it when I make mistakes
Mm,
because I know someone will correct me,
yeah.
and whenever they corrected me on that, I will never forget it.
Mm,
I think there's some sort of psychology study behind it where you're being
yeah,
corrected or something.
yeah,
I don't know what it is,
yeah,
but whenever I've gone out with someone, I know the Arabic is really good. I force
yeah,
myself to speak Arabic with them because
yeah,
I know from either one, I've got two benefits. One is that I'm just practicing my Arabic. Second is if I make a mistake, that mistake has been corrected. So
mm,
I will not make that mistake again.
mm.
So that's what I
MashaAllah.
love. I just
Y-
make myself speak Arabic with someone. If I make a mistake, that mistake won't happen again because he's correcting me or he. Sorry, he is correcting me on that mistake.
Mashallah.
Sorry about that.
No, that's the key. See, if someone's looking at this from afar, yeah, they can already see the qualities that have led you to kind of be successful in this endeavor, because
Mm.
it's that growth mindset. You know, most people, they don't want to do that because it's like you kind of have to humble yourself a little bit to get
Yeah,
corrected. It's that
yeah,
discomfort. And even myself, you know, when we sometimes speak and you start speaking in Arabic on the course, and
yeah,
I'm like, you hesitate a little bit because obviously, but that's how you learn, isn't it?
yeah,
I remember once I was speaking to Sheikh Rizwan, you know, on the walk back
yeah,
when we try and hijack the Sheikh for some wisdom.
yeah,
And I remember I said something very simple, and in that one sentence, there was like 3 or 4 mistakes. You know what I mean?
yeah,
And
yeah,
but it's just alhamdulillah. But anything anyway, akhi, I think we've covered most of the things that we set out to cover.
yeah,
We've kind of covered the motivation, the the steps involved, the different ways of learning, whether it's via an institute or via online. And then obviously you can take time out to go abroad if you can. That's something that you did as well, isn't it, akhi?
yeah. I went Egypt for like the summer.
Yeah.
I thought, you know what, I've got a break from uni. I might as well just go Egypt and just study Arabic there. I found it very, very beneficial. The good thing about it is when I was there, I felt like I wasn't progressing, if that makes
Mm,
sense. But then when I
yeah.
came back and I was speaking Arabic with the fellow classmate, I could see that I've progressed a lot with just
Mm,
being there for a couple of weeks. And I remember I learned so many words, and I was just in that environment, and I was in that study mode
mm,
where I'm just like waking up. Oh, I got class, I got to revise. Okay, I got class, I got to do my class. Oh, I got to revise, I got to do this, etc. I'm just in the mode of studying where I just want to do Arabic. And also, when I go outside, the only way to communicate with people is Arabic. So
mm.
I'm just in that full environment where it's just full on Arabic,
Yeah,
which
exactly.
is
And that's why,
which is good.
and anyone can do that. Obviously, again, some people are going to be like, "Oh, I can't go to go Egypt," but you can, because instead
Yeah,
of going for your 2 week holiday in Sharm el Sheikh or wherever else, yeah,
yeah,
just stretch it to 3 weeks and try and go somewhere with a teacher and learn, isn't it, Afi?
yeah.
And
There's loads of institutes, Marrakech in Egypt, loads of markets, places
yeah,
of
yeah.
studying.
Isn't it Madinatul Nasr where they say it's like Al Fajr Institute, and there's another
Yeah,
one.
that's the learning Arabic hub in Cairo, Egypt.
Mm,
I stayed there, so it's just loads of there's loads of institutes, and personally, I feel like Egypt, Cairo, especially, all the
mm,
teachers are overqualified. In my opinion, they're
mm,
all overqualified. They can teach
mm.
really, really well,
And they
and
teach
and the
Fusha, isn't it?
Fusha, yeah, full on Fusha Arabic,
And
and
just
it's
to
just
kind of, because a lot of people, I've heard people say like now they don't speak that Arabic and so, but I think another one of my teachers was saying the other day that like he's from Morocco and they all have different. He said that obviously each place has their own accent, but most of the people when they're at school they're learning Fusha. So
yeah,
obviously they can still revert back to that. And when they speak to someone that's speaking Fusha, or say when they go to Saudi or something, they all speak Fusha, or they
yeah,
all can kind of match whatever the other person's speaking, isn't it?
yeah.
Mm,
So what it is that in schools they learn Fusha, and
mm,
also all the news, everything like the news and everything is all in Fusha. So let's say they're watching the news, they listen to Fusha, and
yeah,
so when you're speaking Fusha to them, they'll understand and they'll think about it and then they'll reply in Fusha as well. So
mm,
you can communicate with people in Fusha. Uh, I, I've seen that personally. I've seen it in Morocco when I was on holiday. Is that I could communicate with people perfectly in Fusha, and
mm,
also in Egypt, I was speaking with people in Fusha, and also in Turkey. There's a lot of people who speak Arabic there as well, so I could speak Fusha with them.
mm,
So and the Fusha is very universal. You don't have to stick to a specific dialect.
mm. Yeah, and that's also, you know, another point that you mentioned in passing earlier about how when you were in Egypt, you thought that um, you'd reached like a plateau. I think that happens in a lot of skills, and
Mm.
it'll only take maybe 5 more minutes of your time if that's all right, Akhi.
Guys, go for it, man.
And in a lot of skills, you know, they say that the gap between beginner and what's the next step? Like the beginner and novice. They say the gap between beginner and novice is quite short. Like, say you've never played badminton before, yeah?
Mm.
The time it takes for you to go from complete beginner to playable, as in you can hold a rally, isn't that long. But then the
Mm.
time it takes for someone to go from novice to like an expert, that's where the whole 10,000 hours or whatever else comes into it. And
Mm.
I think sometimes it's good for your motivation as well. Like I had a similar experience when they did the khutbah at the local masjid. It was actually, you know how normally they just read the at some of these Pakistani um, masjids, they read the khutbah in Arabic, but it's like a learned khutbah that takes maybe
Yeah.
5 minutes. But this was a Moroccan sheikh that came, and he did it free flowing, as in you could tell he was just speaking in his natural um, manner.
Yeah.
And it was then when I could understand maybe 70 or 80%, or at least make out what he was saying. That's when it hit me that all those kind of times you think that this is difficult or it's taking longer than you expect, which it does, it
Mm.
kind of motivates you a bit more to kind of keep going, isn't it, Akhi?
Yeah. Um, so there's two quotes from my teacher that's like stuck with me when I was learning Arabic.
Yes.
One of them was like, there's a big difference between knowing something and mastering it. So
Mm,
whenever I look at a word and I know it, I always think to myself, have I mastered it?
mm,
So I'll just be like, okay, I know this word, but have I mastered it in the sense that it just comes to me naturally, not like, oh, I have to think about it a bit. And
mm,
also, the second one was uh, anything precious requires a lot of sacrifice. And the
yeah.
Arabic language is precious. It just takes sacrifice, but not as much
Mm,
as you think.
yeah, exactly. And it's
It's
a life and akhirah skill, isn't it, Akhi?
what
As
do you
in,
say,
like,
sorry?
it's like a life and akhirah skill. You
Yeah,
know what I
that's
mean?
true. Yeah, mashallah.
Because like, look, you're young, yeah, 21. It's gonna benefit you, inshallah, for like the rest of your life, isn't it? And
Mashallah.
instead of spending all those hours watching like the latest Netflix and stuff, right? Which we're
Mm.
not. When we say that, we're not mocking. Obviously, we can
Uh,
all entertain, and we all have different avenues for that. Someone might be into MMA, someone might be into something else, right? Someone
mm.
might be into whatever. But you have to think of it as an investment. Think of
Yeah,
kind of optimizing your time and limited time. Like now with this whole coronavirus thing, people are
mm.
reflecting on death a bit more.
Yeah,
Maybe that's one positive from it,
that's
and
true.
the shortness of life as well. So, you know, if you spend your youth struggling, the way I sometimes see it is goes back to kind of trying to balance everything. And I shared that quote by Ibn Jawzi as well in one of the last podcast episodes. They all struggled with it, even the great shuyukh of the past. They all struggled with this kind of balancing everything together. You just have to think of it as if you're trying to exhaust yourself for something good. You get me? So then,
Yeah.
obviously, when the time comes and when it's that day of nafsi nafsi,
Mm.
inshallah, we will get to where we um, wanted to.
Inshallah. Um, well, touching on the social media bit or the Netflix bit, is alright if I can carry on speaking about that.
Yeah, yeah, yeah,
So it's like, okay, I get it. You can spend time on social media. There's nothing wrong with that. But
yeah,
it's a time where you overdo it, where you just damage control, where you just can't control it.
yeah,
You need
yeah,
to like
exactly.
control in a sense that like it feels like you're on it so much that you're just wasting time. Where you can just go on an app like where you can learn your vocab instead,
Yeah,
and
like
that will be
memorize
more
it.
beneficial. Yeah, yeah, memorize or Quizlet. I use Quizlet, but
All right, Quizlet, is that the flashcards?
yeah, that's the flashcards.
Yeah, yeah, I've got
I
one. Yeah, Ahi,
yeah, sorry.
that's a good one that we didn't touch on before. So
Oh
yeah,
yeah,
there's
yeah,
these apps as well.
learning
They've
apps.
actually
Yeah,
helped a lot. So Memrise, I've used Memrise for like 2 years, just slowly going through it. That helps a lot. And the other thing that you mentioned, Quizlet,
yeah.
I have one called
Uh,
Anki.
I've never heard of that. I think I have, but I've never used it actually.
Mm. So how do you use that?
So what I do is I have my class. I
Mm.
write down my vocab. I write down the verbs, the forms. I practice them with myself, like I'm having a group session with myself. Also, what I do is I write it down. I write a story with the verbs and the words that I have from the class.
Mm.
So let's say there's been like 10 different words or 20 different ones. I try to write a story with using every single one of those.
Mm.
And then once I've got that, once I've done that, I write the words down on the Quizlet app.
Mm.
So I have like a folder where it's just like, I don't know, lesson something or
Yeah.
Bain your Dig book.
Mm.
I put my words in there, and so when I'm commuting or wherever, on the train or on the bus, etc., I just go through the vocab like that. So it's just
Mm.
repetition that it's always in my head,
Yeah.
because I've already used it in writing, already used it in speaking with myself.
Mm.
Now I just need to keep it in my brain, so it's always repetitive.
Mm, mashallah, yeah, and that's that spaced repetition. I think both of these, memorize it kind of incorporates it into it. Spaced
Yeah,
repetition is, they say, it's one of the key things in learning. So, like, say if you learn something today and then you don't revisit it, let's say our course notes for the Islamic course, yeah? Say
yeah,
if you read it and don't revisit it, whereas if you read it again after 48 hours, or I think it's the next day, there's like a perfect cycle, but I guess it depends on the material, right?
mm,
Um, the next day, then it stays in your memory a bit longer. Then maybe 3 days later, a bit longer. Then a week later, and then they say after a set number of times, it kind of becomes permanent. And some of these apps, again, it's making life easier because they've got a system within them that allow you, like I think on the flashcards app, you can program it so that that card comes up after a set number of days. You can on the
yeah,
Android app. So then
yeah,
it's constantly, instead of going through everything as a list, again, you're optimizing it because then certain words or phrases will come up maybe after a set number of days and it'll stay in your memory. And you can use that for learning anything else as well. And then what you mentioned about putting it into a story is key because in memory, they say a lot of times we're visual learners. So, if you can make something into a story that sticks with you, obviously you're going to learn it a bit. It's going to stay ingrained in your memory a bit more. So that's another kind of key point to use as well.
mm.
And
But I think like the thing is that people need to learn that when you're learning Arabic, don't have a Western education system mindset to it. If that
mm,
makes sense. Like,
yeah,
don't like learn it like you're learning it like how you learn in school or university. Learn
mm,
it from a different perspective, like from the perspective that we mentioned. Because when people
yes,
come to Arabic, they learn it as in like it's kind of school or university in a sense,
binge
and
learning.
that's what it is. Learning just for an exam.
Actually, we're all guilty of that.
Yeah, we
Like I
are, man.
remember those days, man. Like the day before the exam, have you started revising? Have you started revising? Nope. And then obviously you go back to the mosque days of like ratala, okay, like just remember everything in like a few hours, and then the next day just spill it all out on the paper, and then you come out of it and never again. You don't
Never, yeah,
revisit that topic ever
you know.
again, and that's it. But that's you. What a key point, Akhi. Like
That's
that's yeah, you can't have that.
that's very very important when learning Arabic, is that you don't have a mindset of like it's university or school. Have a mindset that it's Arabic and you're going to learn it differently from what you learn how you learn it in school and university, and
Mm,
that's very very important. Then you learn that, okay, I'm going to learn Arabic, and you're going to learn it every day.
mm,
Like you have that formula where you have the app, or you're writing down your homework, or where you're speaking. So you're learning it every
mm,
day, compared to school and university where you just every 6 months where you have an exam, you're going to revise then, or where
mm,
you have an assignment. That's very sorry, important to have the
yeah,
different different
mentality.
mentality for learning Arabic to when it is to like school or university, because people think when learning they have one mindset. It's all the same. Learning is all the
Mm,
same, but in reality, it's different when it comes to Arabic, because it's when it comes to languages, like you have to live it.
yeah,
If that makes some sense. When it
yeah,
comes to school, you don't. You just like writing down, etc. So when
yeah,
it comes to learning the language, you have to live it, and you have to like basically it's your life.
yeah, exactly.
It's in your like daily schedule, if that makes sense.
Yeah, and a lot of us, we're already bilingual. Like, just a
Yeah,
lot of us, say if we're Pakistani or South Asian, you might already have a different language, whether it's Punjabi, Urdu, Gujarati, right? The thing is, a lot of that's from childhood, so people haven't gone through that learning process where they can. But it's still easy, and obviously there's a lot of similarities between Urdu and Arabic as well.
yeah,
Um, when I say similarities in terms of the odd word like kursi or kameez or even loads of little ones that you realize as you learn more and more vocab. And
mm,
then just finally, Yahi, I wanted to touch on getting rid of any kind of limiting mindset because some people might say, when you tell someone you're learning Arabic, they might say something like, "Oh, it's too late," or "It's going to take you too long," or "Even if you learn it for this many years, you won't be able to speak it like this." You have to kind of get rid of that and just focus on the
Mm,
positives. Because think
yeah.
about the reward, think about the impact that you can teach your kids Arabic. You can start listening to Arabic shuyukh. You can open some of these books like Imam Ghazali's books and just read
Mm,
the Arabic text. The benefits are endless, innit, Aki? And obviously the
yeah.
main one is, say if you're listening to the Quran or in Taraweeh Salah or anything, you can have a
Mm,
deeper kind of grasp of it.
yeah. And there's a more of a connection. Like when I
Mm,
remember when I first learned Arabic and I knew a word, I felt like some sort of excitement in me. Like, look, I know that word and I can translate it.
mm,
And once you build up your Arabic, you realize, okay, you feel that connection with the Quran closer because it's sent in that language. Like
mm.
in the Quran, inna anzalnahu Qur'anan Arabiyan la'allakum ta'qilun.
Yeah,
Like
verily
we
we reveal the Quran in Arabic so that you can, is it understand it?
understand it, but Allah translate it as comprehend it.
Mm,
So
mashallah.
where you can comprehend it, where you can just really like embody it, where you can just really like, in a sense that you are having that personal connection is one to one. There's no like medium of a translation, if that makes sense.
Yeah.
So there's more of a personal connection with the Quran, which I love about it when you learn in Arabic.
Mm. Okay,
And
Akhi. Um,
sorry, I wanted to touch up on one more thing. Sorry,
yeah,
where, the thing about age, where you say it's where you're too old or too young.
yeah,
I think like this concept of age is like a Western concept.
yeah,
Like in Islamic perspective, there's no such thing as a teenager or whatever. Once you've hit
yeah,
puberty, you're a man.
yeah,
So this concept of is the reality is that
yeah,
you're a man or a woman. You
exactly.
there's no such thing as age. So
Yeah,
there's some scholars that I forgot the scholar's name. Like at the age of 40, he started studying and he
yeah,
became a great scholar.
yeah,
I forgot his
exactly.
name.
Yeah. There's
So
loads of
this
examples like that, but people just come up with whatever. It's what you said earlier.
this
Like, they come up with whatever excuse. I remember when I was learning Urdu a few years ago, someone was saying to me then, they're like, "You're already, I think 23, 24. What's the point in learning Urdu now?" And I was
mm,
thinking, I was just thinking, like, what?
yeah.
It doesn't make
So
like that's poison that they've let into their mind, and it's not. If it's affected them, I'm not gonna let it affect me. I know that
yeah,
sounds harsh, but that's it. You
it's the
have to
truth.
kind of sometimes think like that.
That's true.
Akhi, unless you got any other comments, what I was gonna say is, um, we'll put this out, and if anyone has any questions about specifics, they can message us, and
Mm,
we link like some whatever social media or way of contacting you feel comfortable with in the show notes, yeah. And
yeah.
just want to say jazakallah khairan for your time, and
Well, yeah, come.
it was very good, mashallah. Alhamdulillah,
Alhamdulillah.
I enjoyed it, and it's hopefully, inshallah, it's of benefit to people. And I look forward to having the next kind of installment on Arabic or maybe any other topic, inshallah.
Inshallah. No worries. Inshallah. Jazakallah khairan.
Assalamu alaikum.
Wa alaikum salam.
If this content makes you think, you find it beneficial, it improves your deen and life in any way, as a favor I ask that you make dua for the success of this project. It's small at present and just myself, but I have a vision for it, alhamdulillah. Secondly, I'd ask that you share a screenshot on your social media, or better yet, send it to that one friend that you know thinks in a similar manner and would benefit. If you guide someone towards a good action, you get the reward of that action, and in doing so we can benefit from one of the positives of this hyper-connected social media world in what I call the good deed multiplier effect. Please also rate the podcast on whatever listening platform you use so it's promoted to more people, inshallah. Assalamu alaikum.